It is now my pleasure to bring back Peter Evans, who will introduce our next panel on platforms and the experience economy. Take it away, Peter.
Great. Thank you so much. You know, we try at the MIT Platform Strategy Summit to explore all dimensions of platforms. We heard this morning about platforms in the industrial space, but platforms are also having an increasing role in experiences. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce Joe Pine. Joe Pine is an accomplished author. He's a co-founder of a consulting firm that specializes in the experience economy. And he and I have teamed up to do an exploration of platforms in experiences. So thank you very much for joining us today. Where are you?
I'm in my home office in Minnesota, actually, for the last day. Tomorrow I move to a new house with my wife onto a lake home.
Great. Well, in that busy move, thank you for taking the time today to share with us. And so with that, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Peter. You know, as you said, we're here to talk about experience platforms. And, you know, the thesis of my book, The Experience Economy, is that we've moved from an agrarian economy based off commodities through an industrial economy based off goods through a service economy. And today we're in an experience economy where what consumers and increasingly business people want are experiences. You know, experiences are memorable events that engage each person in an inherently personal way. And you know, then again, create that memory as the hallmark of the experience. And you know, basically, experiences are every place where people don't want to be right now because of this corona crisis. You know, that's how you know it's an experience, at least a physical one. You know, but we see platforms, as Peter and I have been looking at this, across all four of those economic offerings. Of course, commodities have always been sold on platforms. I can still remember a visit last May to Flora, Holland, which is like the original flower market. Where flowers come in from all over the world and are exchanged there, and everything's done digitally online with the physical movement of the flowers in the place. And then we have goods platforms, of course, with Amazon probably being the preeminent example. There are services platforms. You think about Uber, about getting from point A to point B through that digital platform. And then experience platforms you can think about as like Airbnb. Now, originally Airbnb was just a service platform because it was just selling a couch or a spare room in that. But they began teaching their hosts to be hospitable and how to create great experiences. And of course, they specifically added on a trips function, the experience function, and now since COVID-19 hit, an online experience function. So truly an experience platform. Now, there's one more offering we actually talk about in the book beyond experiences, and that's where you use experiences as the raw material to guide people to change, to actually help them achieve their aspirations, right? And we call that a transformation. That's like going to a fitness center to get washboard abs, or going through healthcare to go from sick to well, a smoking cessation program to go from smoker to non-smoker. All of those are transformations, and a lot of the experiences we have are in fact because we have aspirations we want to achieve. And so you see transformation platforms like edX, like Khan Academy, a B2B platform like BetterUp, which is a coaching platform for executives. Now, all platforms have transactions. You know, whatever the type of platform it is, it has a transaction to enable that exchange of value, of course. With commodities, it's usually called a trade as opposed to a transaction, but goods platforms have transactions. With services platforms, you add on top of that interactions between the two sides of the platform. With experience platforms, on top of the transactions and interactions, you now add encounters, as guests encounter what engages them inside of the experience. And then with transformation platforms, there are also outcomes, right? The achievement of the aspiration, which is done by the experiences built on top of the services surrounding the goods made out of commodities, right? It's a stack is what it is. They all fit together. So this year, Peter and I have been researching this, and we've discovered hundreds of experience platforms. We've been investigating scores of them and taking a look at them. And we brought three of these here together today in this panel session to share their platform strategies with you. And starting with Andrew Beranbom, who is the founder and CEO of First Tube Media, a branded live streaming performance platform. And then secondly, we have Laura Simpson, CEO and co-founder of Side Door, which matches artists with spaces to create shows, and which Stephen Page mentioned that he uses earlier today. And then finally, Ronald van den Hoff from the Netherlands, the co-owner of seats2meet.com, which matches free agent workers with spaces or seats in which to work. So I'd like to join Andrew, Laura, and Ronald onto the panel. All right. And if you could tell us more about the essence of your platform and how you got into the business. And Andrew, we'll start with you.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Right.
And so we got into the business. We've been in digital marketing for 20 years. We saw streaming as kind of a new frontier about 5 years ago. As we were kind of constantly watching the changes from social video and now streaming as a new frontier for branded marketing. And we saw how hard it was for brands to understand kind of how to harness the medium, and then also understand very specifically the ROI. Our backgrounds are in performance marketing. And so we started in music as kind of our core vertical. And as we understood and researched sponsorship dollars being invested in music, by and large, brands had a hard time understanding what the ROI was. And we saw music as the most popular type of content that was being consumed on the internet and across all different types of platforms. 90% of YouTube is music, and is starting to evolve a bit. But by and large, they didn't know how to harness it in a scalable way. And so we come in full service as a platform. It's a combination of managed services with technology. The technology is kind of starting to grow as we mature in the market quite a bit, and we power brand-owned live digital experiences.
All right, super. Laura, how about you?
Thanks a lot, Joe. It's great to be here and meet all of you. We started as a marketplace, the concept being how artists can have agency in their own destinies, and live performance being the greatest source of revenue for them. We knew that a lot of artists had a huge problem self-booking and finding their audience. And so we were doing it all in person before COVID-19, and then switched to online streaming concerts as of March 21st, and have completed nearly 200 shows since then. Lots of interesting experiences along the way. But yeah, we essentially still operate as a marketplace. So it's a booking and ticketing platform that also helps match the artists with people who might be involved in the show. So that might be someone who's a moderator, like we're doing right now in Zoom. That might be somebody who's going to take photos. That might be somebody who's going to do sound tech. So we can help collaborate and pull together the people necessary to make a great show.
And did you know Stephen Page was on your platform? I don't know how intimately involved you get knowing who all the artists are and everything.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
All right, super.
It's a
all
small
right, Ronald. Ronald, tell us about your platform.
Hi, Joe. Good afternoon. We started out many years ago running and operating conference centers, and then under the influence of internet and the new transaction possibilities, we started to cluster various locations and offer them online to the market. And we were one of the first companies offering online reservation of meeting rooms and office seats and stuff like that. So basically, all of a sudden, we found ourselves to be a service platform, and we took it from there, basically. So at this moment, we're offering all kinds of hospitality locations, corporate offices, etc. And we offer to the corporates, small, medium-sized companies and their free agents, co-work seats, office seats, and meeting seats.
Right, now, you actually use the term service platform there, right? So you were at least originally constituted as a service platform. Do you think of yourself as an experience platform as well? Maybe even some transformations?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We grew from that into an experience platform. And at this moment, we consider ourselves even to be a transformative platform, a transformation platform. I can elaborate on that a little bit later. But I mean, we evolved and we started with one step, which was really based around the transaction. And now, of course, we do a lot of other things with a transaction as a result. So we grew into that over the past 15 years already.
Yeah, Laura and Andrew, do you see yourselves as experience platforms as well, or is it? I mean, is like a new concept when we first talked to you, or is it something that you're all about experiences? You know that.
Go ahead, Laura. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, we would consider ourselves an experience platform. Like I said, the atomic unit, and I'm using an Eva Lau reference there, of, this show being the
Yeah.
nugget that everything circles around. So that is an experience. So for sure, I don't know if I would say, it's interesting thinking about transformational experiences, and that is a new concept to me, and I think it's something that you aspire to if you are doing, especially something related to someone's career, which we are.
Right.
Um, think about how you can expand their initial creation of a show to building an audience, building a following, understanding, how to present a live show. And so actually we do a lot of education and a lot of support in and around those shows.
Right. That's not unlike, again, how Airbnb taught hosts to be hospitable. Right. Chip Conley's a friend of mine, the former CEO of Joie de Vivre Hospitality, and he became their chief hospitality officer specifically to get them into that. So, and like with you, it's not the guest side that the transformation. That's the experience side. It's the host. It's the band, that is doing the show, or whatever the artist might be. That you can help them be better at what they do, find a bigger audience. That I think it's great.
Well, and we do have a deep belief that actually everyone can be an agent in this system, so that we do
Right.
see audience members who are also becoming hosts and who are also maybe playing a show themselves. So there is many hats that you can wear, and that might be a transformation consideration as well, as like how you evolve through the platform and take on those different roles.
Right. It's like what's the old saying about in education about see one, do one, teach one sort of thing, right? So I'm a guest at one, I'm a player at one, and then I host one, and that all fits in, right?
Right.
It's a great mechanism too, because you're growing the entire network every time you gain one on any one of the sides, right?
Right. Exactly.
All right, Andrew.
It's funny hearing you guys use the word experience platform. My background is in building SaaS platforms, and kind of, as we got into this market opportunity around, how do we take live events and talent and audience and turn that into kind of scalable live media programming for brands. We were early to the market, like most ideas I have, as an entrepreneur the last 20 years. And, what we're now seeing, obviously, with some of the bets that we had made of being able to provide this kind of full service platform to actually let brands operate this stuff at scale. The core kind of component of it is the experience, right? And so we refer to those as tune-in moments. And the tune-in moments that we design for our brands, what we're really experts in is knowing how to drive the engagement of that tune-in moment. So, the experience itself is key, right? It needs to be, the competition for attention is kind of the world that we kind of play in. And it's like, how do we garner that attention for our brands in an authentic, scalable way that they get their business results out of, right? And so the experience component of that is core to everything that we do, right? And so, I think we, and just with the kind of the evolution of what we're doing, where we were, before this all went down, we were using live events as we were designing these 360 type of programs, and now it's all digital. We are seeing a massive amount of innovation on what a digital live experience is. And that's kind of opened up new doors to us of where we're heading, and kind of the different types of software and tools that we're going to build around building this ecosystem and our SaaS component of the business.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to
Sorry,
say,
Laura, go
I
ahead.
echo that, just because we as a marketplace are actually vetting vendors constantly to see who we can pull in as, a software, a partner, someone that you can use an extension from our platform at any one time. So that's anything from like having a broadcast stream now with Vimeo. That's, what we're integrating next, to, like, how do we have a peer-to-peer support for moderators, so that when you're pulling those elements in, they've been sort of pulled through some sort of vetting process that we can look at. And I echo Andrew, like, it's insane the innovation that's happening out there. There's
Right.
a new company popping up every single day that does all of the things in this world.
Right. So Laura, how, what innovation have you seen going on then, going out there?
I think it's really interesting because, here's just an example. I have a theater and, you think about venues, just, one part of this market. So venues right now, a lot of overhead to carry. Oftentimes there's been no relief in terms of like government subsidies in Canada. There's been a lot of government relief, I know, in the US as well. But for them to survive throughout this pandemic, it's been an intense problem. And so they have been looking for any way to just use this space, use any production quality value that they have. So one thing that a venue came to us with is like, could we do a geo-gated show with two promoters to two different audiences, but one show that's simulcast to two markets? And I'm seeing the response is already coming up, and like, we're already, it's part of our release plan is in the next couple of months to have geo-gating, and that wasn't even a thing that was sort of thought about before. And you're starting to see that is like, okay, well, now that all bets are off and we have no idea what customer behavior is going to be for audiences because we don't know if they're going to be exhausted by doing online experiences, we're just going to pull out all the bells and whistles that we can, but also pull up this existing old school industry model that this is how we know it works. So maybe we can make it work in the online world. So it's a weird clash of those two worlds coming together.
Right. I'll show my nerdiness a bit. That phrase you said reminded me of the line from Star Trek, where Scotty says, "I've never beamed three people from two different locations onto one pad before."
Yeah.
You got all this stuff going on, and that's an innovation. And Andrew, you said a key phrase for me. You said you talk about competing for attention. When we re-released the experience economy this year, we subtitled it "Competing for Customer Time, Attention, and Money." And that's exactly what's going on. So do you have any case studies, or what's a great case study, or particularly around innovation that you've seen?
Yeah, and I think that's been part of our success over this specific year. We've seen a tremendous boon in the business. We had kind of a proven model for how to use live media to prove out those business results for brands. And, recently, we've done over 28 episodes just in the last, 60 days. And out of that, one to highlight, which is kind of near and dear to what we're doing, it's what's been really cool with what's happening in the market is everything we do integrates social impact. And so we power all of St. Jude Children's Hospital live programming. And so the idea is that we're building these different kind of exclusive tune-in moments for St. Jude. And recently we've done a number of episodes, but one to call out is for Global Giving Tuesday, which was on May 5th. We were able to put together a 5-hour program. It was a combination of celebrities, music talent. It was really cool because we got to distribute out our remote production kits that we've designed that allow us to completely produce live streams through the cloud and create TV broadcast quality. That's kind of a key part of kind of our kind of differentiation in the market is how we kind of produce these premium. Everything we do is very premium on the video side of it.
Does that mean it's always going back through your location and then back out again?
Yeah. So typically a switcher would have to be, like Laura's talking about in venue, right? You're typically having 6 cameras coming into an in venue. We now can take a phone, or we do our kind of 4K kits, which is 2 Mevo cameras, lighting rig, a separate audio encoder with an iPad. We send that out, and we're producing shows remotely with no one in person. From doing culinary cooking shows with Traeger Grills every single Thursday, which is a fun one that we do, to with St. Jude, we recorded over 45 different types of talent. And, with that, we were able to distribute out using our methodology of knowing how to do pre-live and post-marketing, and then create this episode. We drove over $1 million in donations over the course of the 2 weeks surrounding the program. And so, a great kind of example of kind of how powerful live media can be for driving very clear business results. And, we had over 36 million people watch the show. And so there's kind of a tremendous scale to what we're doing as well.
Not 36 million live at one moment.
No. And so 36 million is basically pre-live and post. We had over 6 million people simultaneously watching the show.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. Laura mentioned the show as the atomic unit of what she's doing. You used episode, but then I love this term tune-in moment, right? It's and I don't know, how did that phrase come about?
You know, it's funny because I talk, you know, to my friend, you know, one of our strategic advisors, gentleman Joe Beliotti. He sits on our advisory board. He was the head of music for Coca-Cola for 8 years, and he's like, you know, I guess as being an entrepreneur and a founder, sometimes you make stuff up. But you know, I think for me, it kind of really just explicitly explained, you know, again, the challenge of the attention economy, right? Everybody is trying to get someone to pay attention for a specific moment. We believe every brand in the world is going to need to control and own these episodic tune-in moments to actually, as a format of advertising against traditional, you know, approaches that have existed and are not working, right? And so, you know, everyone knows that digital's eating kind of radio and TV, and you know, last year it took over the marketing spend. But now, as people look at social and video and live, right, the key thing now is, you know, how do you leverage the talent, and the brands are now publishers, right? And so how do you harness that and be authentic and drive the goals that you're trying to create? That's exactly what we try to create and go after, and have been successful in doing so.
Right. Well, authenticity is the name of another book I've written, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, I think you wrote a book about each piece of our, you know, ethos, you know.
That's right. So Ronald, your atomic unit seems to be a seat, right? You know, we got show, we got episode or tune-in moment. Yours is a seat. So and you're a bit different than the others, being a B2B platform in essence. So how is it typically used by free agents that generally are using that, and what outcomes you tend to get with them?
Yeah, well, like I said, we started out as a service platform, but then we realized when we saw more or less self-enterprising professionals coming up, and they were in need of co-working seats. That's when the word co-working entered the scene. We said, well, we have people, but those people, they have a lot of data and knowledge. And can we use those freelancers, those co-workers, to enhance the experience of our guests who are coming in on the meeting rooms? And we said, well, those guys have tremendous lot of expertise. So if we can create a spontaneous meeting that whenever you're in your meeting room and you come out, you have the possibility to meet independent professionals, and that creates an experience by itself. The key thing is you have to know a lot of those people. So that's why we said, well, data has a value. So we offer the co-workers free seats in exchange for their knowledge and their data. And that means when the co-workers in our system book a meeting seat, they don't pay by dollars or euros, but they pay by sharing some of their data, who they are, what knowledge they have to share, etc., etc. At that moment, and now we have the entrance of the artificial intelligence development, which is coming even accessible for companies like ours. I mean, 5 years ago, this was completely something from science fiction movies.
Right.
And we use artificial intelligence to match people who are on the premises and who don't know each other, but who are relevant to each other at that particular moment, at that particular time. And that's called serendipity. So we really use serendipity to enhance the experience.
It's programmed serendipity, though, right? If you're matching,
but if right? Programmed serendipity,
right.
And in that sense, we are capable of creating a one-to-one experience for each individual whenever they're on our physical locations. And that really gives us a tremendous competitive advantage. And it has nothing to do anymore with the initial transaction. Here's a seat, give me money. You know, it's working completely different in that respect.
So is this serendipity? Have there been some great success stories out of it about what has happened when people have met because of your
Oh, fantastic. It's unbelievable what's happening. I mean, we had from the system over the past 5 years, we had 3 new school systems arise. I mean, there have been people starting to collaborate. So at least 75 books has been published, which found their origin in the network. We have seen the light of what you call startups nowadays. Tremendous number of companies, you know, who are producing stuff that they collaborating, they're working together. on an ad hoc basis. So it's really typically network creation, value creation, what they're doing over there. So the output has been tremendously, and that gives us such a good reputation in the market that people really want to bring their business to us. And that's where we generate then, because we have to make some money in the end too. And that means we have become very popular places to hold your meeting and things like that. And then you have corporates coming in, and they start paying to have meetings on our premises because they want to meet, let's say, those new innovative people of this world, being the freelancers or the free agents. So then we started to expand the number of possible locations, and we told corporates, well, why don't you bring in your premises on your headquarters into our ecosystem as a location as well? So one of the Dutch insurance companies, they opened up their headquarters. They introduced the Seats to Meet co-working model on their ground floor. So now they find themselves all of a sudden people coming in there to work, pay by social capital, by telling who they are, what knowledge they have to share. They have their own marketeers working in the same environment. So those people really we match them. They started to meet and talk, drink coffee, have chats, etc., etc. So this insurance company is using now co-working as an enabler for the whole innovation process. So they take that and they select processes, they do pitch events, and then all of a sudden they start inviting those people to join them in their innovation processes. So then all of a sudden it has nothing to do with let's say meeting facilities or hospitality, but all of a sudden co-working is becoming an enabler, for innovation. We have even a company who is using co-working to get in touch with the right people and using as a recruitment engine. Yeah. So all of a sudden you see that all kinds of experiences can be created, coming from the hospitality industry, where you start simply with a seat, and that's leading to much, much more.
Right, as that atomic unit again. So you mentioned, let's talk a little bit about this making money aspect of it, because we've known each other for a long time, and we've had discussions about this, because I'm always big on you should be charging admission for the experience. You should be charging for the time the customer spent with you, because time well spent is what experience is all about. But you don't do that. So how does it work?
No, we do. I mean, if you share your data publicly, it has a value. Mm-hmm. So that's a form of payment. Right. But in that respect, if those meetings are there and those free agents start to collaborate with corporates, then all of a sudden they are in need in office space. They need meeting space for client presentations and whatsoever. And of course, we offer that as well to them, but then for money, for real money, as you would say. So that's where we make our money. So basically what's happening, we create our own internal market first by using social capital, and then we monetize on the fact that there's a lot of transactions and new meetings and new collaborations starting, and we monetize on that by offering them meeting seats and office seats. But the insurance company is offering then, let's say, the access to their innovation pattern. That's their return on their investment.
Right. Yeah, I've often said that the experience is the marketing, and you got rid of your entire sales force because of the social capital and what they owe, basically.
Yeah, I no longer have a sales staff. I no longer have PR staff. No longer have a reservation department. What you find in all the traditional organization, that's all done through the network, by the network, and we facilitate, in a unique way by using our own created software. We facilitate the whole process.
Right. All right. So Laura, when you're last talking, I counted at least 3 sides to your platform. It seems like a little more complicated than that. How, is it 3-sided or is it more? How, and what are the complications that arise from that?
You basically have a creator, someone who is the creative, who's giving the show, and then you have any number of different hat wearing supports. So that can be a host, a promoter, a venue. And then, the third side is the audience, the viewer, the one who is consuming the content. So it is 3-sided, even though, the kind of artist changes, the kind of support changes. The audience pretty much stays the same.
But you're right, even though they may move from one of those sides to the other, like you mentioned before. So how is the Corona crisis that I like to talk about affected your business?
Yeah, we probably went between canceling 100 shows for the month to licking our wounds for the week, and then my co-founder, who's an artist himself, was the guinea pig for the first Zoom show that we did, because we have remote teams already. We'd use Zoom quite a bit, and so we just threw a show up, ticketed online, and it wasn't like live streaming wasn't happening before, but ticketing those shows was a lot more.
Which is charging admission.
We're charging admission, and therefore we were really trying to create value around what that experience was going to be. With Zoom, it could be interactive. You do Q&A with the artist. There's a lot more community value that's there, and so we quickly went from doing all in-person stuff to doing online shows. And it's interesting to hear Andrew speak about, which parts of the journey they are doing in-house, like having your own production kits. I think that's really interesting to think about, because at every step of the game, you're either building it or you're relying on somebody else to partner with you, or the user themselves to do it themselves. And that, those are different friction points that you either tolerate or you try to adjust. So for us, it was, we were having people, this is just a really small example of just sort of how it's evolving in the last few months, but online shows, people bring their own streaming platform and just were plopping the link in. Well, soon we discovered the security was utmost importance for folks, Zoom bombers being a thing. Right. So ticket security became one of the first releases that we just put out, which is now you have a secure single-use ticket link for that Zoom concert. We're going to do the same for the broadcast quality. But those are things that we had to build in on top of an existing service platform that is still feeding the live streaming platform, which maybe someday we'll create our own streaming platform. I don't really want to do that, but I can understand that's where the scope creep comes into play with these kinds of platforms, is that the decisions of what you do in-house and who to partner with.
Right, you got a classic make or buy decision there, because could you ever keep adding as much as the streaming platforms already do, even though you've got a particular need that they don't have? Yeah, interesting. All right, Ronald, Andrew, how has the Corona crisis affected your businesses?
No, most of our locations have been closed down for 2 or 3 months. They're opening up now. And in the meantime, the key challenge was to stay in touch with all the shareholders. So like most of the organization did, we moved a lot of stuff online, and we created some new features within our existing software. And that means, for instance, if you book now a physical meeting space, automatically we give you a virtual meeting space as well within the same reservation system as part of the same process. For that, we use an existing platform called Jitsi, which is an open source platform, and we integrate it in our software. So we use the moment also, to come up with some new solutions and new features, because it's for us, our business, the meeting industry, it's still a guess, how the market will react in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think I mentioned I have a habit of kind of creating ideas that are a little early to the market, and right. In this situation, a good old pandemic has accelerated what we're up to significantly, both just on live stream adoption on the consumer side, as well as, I would say 5% of CMOs knew what we were talking about before this all went down. They were savvy, they were thinking forward, they wanted to understand, hey, I'm investing $1 million at a live event sponsorship. How do I ensure I'm getting ROI off of that? And now suddenly, I'd say in just a very quick amount of time, when you're kind of looking at a market opportunity, I'd say 90% of CMOs understand, or at least interested in understanding, how can digital live experiences, how can this new format work for my brand, right? And I think that's been a part of the market effect for us, as well as just, there was a lot of budgets being applied to live event sponsorship that they're like, what should we do? And so like a Tito's Vodka, who traditionally sponsors festivals, across the year, we're going to be operating a brand new IP for them. We're going to be launching it in early August, and those types of situations, I don't think would have been this big of an acceleration, and so it's definitely impacted us there, as well as it's really given us a very strong clarity on what the SaaS part of our business is going to be, and what the demand for the tools that we're going to be building to complement kind of our level of service that we already have been successful in market with.
Right. And when live physical experiences come back, do you see like both at once? I mean, Ronald mentioned you get a virtual meeting with the physical space, and that are you going to do? It's not just physical or digital, right? It's going to be both, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the main market pain point that everyone's competing for attention as a brand, the idea that, you building exclusive content, to your target audiences where you can engage them and get your brand in front of them intelligently and authentically, as we talked about, live events just propel that storyline, right? They provide more exclusive storylines that we can create for the brand. And so yeah, we don't see it going back. We see it going forward where brands are going to get savvier about, hey, if I'm doing a live experience, maybe my private meet and greet digitally was actually much more cost effective and more valuable to my audience than just doing it to the 50 people that were there. And so maybe I can use that private experience as a incentive and tie it into a promotional layer on top of my live event sponsorship that I was already executing, and kind of rounding out that 360 kind of strategy is where we see the market going.
All right, terrific. Yeah, I'm formulating a model where I think that anything that has a live physical experience ought to simultaneously broadcast it digitally. And get 10 times as many people paying half as much, right?
Yeah, maybe I'll bring you to run head of sales, Joe.
Okay, good, right. And I think you then go on from there. So for all three of you, in addition to in the Platform Revolution, right, the great book, the authors here write that platform providers have to do three things well. They have to pull, facilitate, and match. And pull is about attracting both sides of the platform, or all three sides in Laura's case. Facilitate is creating the infrastructure for completing transactions. And match connects the right player on one side with the right provider on the other. And Ronald, you did talk specifically about that matching aspect to people. So as experienced platforms, how do you pull, facilitate, and match? Whoever wants to go.
I mean, for us, it's simple. We create amazing digital live experiences that pull audiences. We then are able to match brands with talent, and we're a brand new, to Laura's, impetus, like, performers need to perform live as a core part of the revenue. And so, we've basically brought in branded content dollars, right? A exploding part of advertising directly to talent, and we pay them, right? And so that's how we do that. And then the matching aspect of brand and talent is done through a variety of data analysis and kind of audience analysis to find the right fits for understanding a talent's audience and how do you match that to the brand's target markets.
All right. Ronald?
Well, again, like I said, we do a lot of facilitation. That means that we offer for all the locations, we offer them all kinds of knowledge tools like yield management systems and real-time dashboards, and we try to educate them to bring them up on a higher level. For the audience side and things like, we offer virtual magazines and event software and event calendars. So we really give them a stage to act upon. That's our facilitating process. But in the future, and we had to speed up that process, we have so much data. So at this stage, we can already predict what kind of knowledge, what kind of type of events the network has a need for within the next 2 or 3 months. So we can focus on that. And we can even invite, let's say, other experts and facilities to the platform. And that's how we pull them and say, well, there's a need for an event on this topic, for this and this audience. And then once the product is, or the product is finished, I mean, our algorithm is capable of selecting then the right audience for the right event. So at that moment, it's just push the button and the right people are invited to join the event and things like that. So the facilitating goes much further, and then obviously whenever their event or the meeting or whatever you have is there, it's always will be from now on a hybrid format. You have a physical component and a virtual component. I mean, that's there to stay.
Yeah, I've done a few of those events for you. It's been great. But Laura, I have no musical talent whatsoever. But how do you pull, facilitate, and match?
Because we're an artist first company, we actually have always started with trying to attract the a specific kind of artist who's basically has enough agency to decide what they want to do on their own, but may have a small team and is hopefully on the way up rather than in the sunset phase of their career. And they act as a magnet for great hosts who want to host them and great audiences who want to see them. And so for us, it's sort of like they are the pull. And then when we bring in the audience, we do have, a system of just sort of like saying, okay, well, did you enjoy this? Are you interested in hosting? And then we sort of repurpose them into that journey if they'd like to go that way. And as well for the tools that we offer, like our entire purpose was to just like Airbnb did, convince people that they indeed can have agency and a role in show creation and when they attend a show, and just give them a sense of involvement in this. So that's sort of how we work in terms of the tools.
One of the questions our audience has asked is how much of the experience is due to the platform versus the actual performance the live artist provides, and that may get into why you might want to create your own streaming platform as it. But does the platform itself add onto the experience, or is it only the connections between the endpoints?
We definitely take a teach a man how to fish approach in that way. We don't control the content. We definitely suggest what our best practice is to have great content. We have lots of materials out there now to do that. We do webinars and that sort of thing. But we don't gatekeep and we don't curate. What we're working more towards is what Ronald was discussing, which is if you like goth klezmer music, we're going to drive you to the goth klezmer music, but it's not for everyone. So it's allowing the audience, allowing the host to sort of choose their own adventure by way of identifying themselves. But then also, we're moving towards sort of like behavioral learning so that we can say, well, you said you liked goth klezmer music, but really you're attending a lot of magic shows. So we're going to mix it up a little bit.
Right. So that's what's where you can program in serendipity as well then, based on that, right? All right. Ronald, Andrew, does the platform itself add to the experience, or is it purely again the tune in moment or the what happens in the seat?
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Ronald.
Thank you. It's the same thing as Laura said. We don't curate and stuff like that. So we do do a lot of education, a lot of webinars and training sessions, suggestions, inspirational stuff, and things like that. And then, of course, there's the technology, which has to be superb and has to be flawless. But basically, you collaborate. It's more like a network affair with the whole ecosystem. Everybody participates and is part of the experience. And some people even create their own experience, which is fine, as long as they experience the experience by using, let's say, our ecosystem. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Super. Andrew?
Yeah, I would say we're still more on the agency side of that part of our trajectory where we're customizing, curating exactly the experience for what we think is going to optimize the value for the brand who's our client. Yeah, and so when we're for Grubhub, we're specifically selecting, and curating talent that meets their target audiences, right, and also potentially matches the causes. Our next episode is all going to be supporting, Black Lives Matter, and so the curation will associate to maximizing the impact that we can make to that cause, while also driving the business goals for Grubhub that they're trying to achieve, right? And so that's trying to create, new audience awareness, with the talent supporting them, while also driving orders, throughout the experience. And so, again, it's very custom and very curated, probably the opposite of, the maturity of where their platforms are.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Andrew, one of the questions we got from someone in the audience specifically for you is, can you talk more about the boundary between what you ask partners to add and what you do yourself? Right? What are the trade-offs there?
Yeah, because the complexity of what we do, we did create a full service solution. So we are a pretty interesting kind of team of misfits almost. I describe it, we're a team of musical experts, talent promoters, talent buyers, and then also licensing and clearancing, filmmakers, and then digital marketers and technologists, where my brain kind of fits on the back end of that.
And how many people do you have?
Yeah, we're 9 full-time, and then it's kind of a SWAT team of production around the globe, really. And to answer that question, there are times where we have an agency who already has the talent selected for the brand or something like that, and we come in and kind of surround the rest of it with our capabilities, right? One of the core things that we definitely bring is our analytics piece of it, our technology, where we're actually showing the value back to the brand. A lot of people still, that's kind of a ripe area of the market where people really don't understand the value of live media. And so being able to communicate that back to the market's key. So we do pretty much take the full service approach, but there are moments where we do partner in certain capacities.
All right. And Laura, a question for you is, you described a 3-sided structure. Can you talk about how you know when to add an additional type of user, and how much work does that take to add?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're in this phase right now where the host became kind of obsolete, and we debated whether or not we take them out, or we just, excuse me, if we kind of remodel who they're, like what their service, their purpose is. And so because we didn't want to add like host and then moderator, and then it gets too insane. So what we really wanted to do was think about not what their titles are, but what their roles allow, what their administrative status allows. So that's basically what we came down to, and that's where we came up with sort of the more creator, supporter, audience role, and that determines the
right. So role is the key thing. Is what is the role? You may have multiple hats, maybe doing different things, but what's the key role?
Right.
All right. And then Ronald, question is that you use open source software in your system. Does that ever cause trouble with support and maintenance? And what advice would you give other companies when they're choosing between open source and for-profit software?
Well, the key thing is we used, in this case, the open source system because everybody was moving into Zoom and stuff, and they had a lot of privacy issues. And in Europe, our privacy laws are pretty strict. So at that moment, we had no choice than look for another solution. In that, I have nothing against paid or open source platforms or as such, but this was at this moment for us the best possibility. And since you have more influence than if you use open source and you integrate it in your own software, you can guarantee much more, and you have to solve the privacy issues by yourself. I mean, the laws here, the GDPR regulations in Europe are very strict. Yeah. So you can't risk really, you can't get away when another company is saying, yeah, sorry, we made a mistake. And I mean, then you're stuck. Yeah. So this was so new, and everybody, all those platforms were booming and everybody was moving in there, and really had to figure out how to start doing it. What we did and what we're still doing is taking it step by step. Really put in a minimum viable product, test it, see how it works. Does it really integrate? Does it do what people say it does? Make sure that your own technicians are part of the open source groups you have out there. And if you don't have that, then a paid platform can be as good as a solution. But in this case, since the whole virtuality was so new in combination with physical events and stuff like that, we had to be very careful in the light of our GDPR regulations we had here in Europe. That's why we made this decision at this moment.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you panelists. I thank you for joining us, Laura, Andrew, Ronald. I think we see that there's a lot of commonalities between experience platforms and others for goods, services, and even commodities. But then there's a lot of unique things that go on too because of that experience being the unit, whether again it's a show, whether it's a tune-in moment, whether it's the experience you have as a seat, and with all the other experience platforms out there. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. We learned a lot of insights about platforms, and I certainly learned that goth klezmer is a genre of music, so now we know. And I would invite everyone now to grab a coffee, grab lunch, and join us back here promptly at 12:15 or quarter past the hour for a very different genre of music. We'll have a live music interlude from Craig King. See you soon.